All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, here to Strokers in Palm Harbor, Florida, for coverage of the 2017 U.S. Amateur Championship. I'm your host, Jason Bowman. I'm joined by one of the participants in this year's event, Mr. Stuart Warnock. Stuart, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Hey, no problem.
Always good to have some insight from one of the participants. Folks, if you're just tuning in, we've got a great match here coming up, the proverbial hot seat match, if you will, featuring two players, Stuart, that probably don't need much of an introduction, but we're going to introduce them anyway. We've got David Rowell, who you're seeing currently at the table practicing. David, a former U.S. amateur champion, one of the guys here that you see regularly year after year. He's out of Birmingham, Alabama, and he's going to be opposed by a player that everybody knows here, Stuart, and that's Brian Parks, the defending champion. Your thoughts on this match?
It's going to be a good one. That's without saying at this point in the tournament, though. You know, it's the best is still standing.
Now, did you have a chance to square off with either one of these guys in the tournament this year?
No, thankfully not.
Not this year? What about past years?
Past years, I played Brian before. David, no. I've never played him before.
Okay.
Seen him play, though. He's a very steady game.
So having played Brian, and, of course, he's the one that a lot of folks like to talk about. He's a four-time champion. He's the defending champion. He's going for his 5th U.S. amateur title. Curious what your feelings are on his game, or maybe what if there are any holes, what those holes might be for David.
Honestly, seeing him play this week, I really don't see any holes in the game.
He's looked pretty good, right?
He's looking pretty solid. Even the matches that he's kind of struggling in a little bit, he's still pulling them out. So that's a good thing. That's how you win tournaments, though. Got to win those tough matches.
Of course, Brian is here from Bakersfield, California. Another player, again, that you see regularly. So, Stuart, how did you fare this year?
I got the first 2 wins. First 2 matches I won. The third I lost on the live stream table. Bit of a heartbreaker. But then lost the next one after that also. So,
what's that like for you guys when you play on the live stream table? Does it add pressure for you guys? Something you think about a little bit?
For myself, no. I play on the live stream quite a bit. I've got a few matches under my belt playing on that from New York and when I come here. So for me, it doesn't really make any difference. It's just you're just playing on the table.
Pretty even lag there. Looks like Brian got the better of him now.
And I'm sure, as always, he's going to take the break.
Is that generally what you do? If you win the lag, you take the break and let the other guy decide on the game?
Absolutely, yeah. You don't want to give up any break and runs, unnecessarily. So
sure.
You want to control that break all the time.
And when you don't win the lag and the guy takes the break, how do you decide which you always start in the same format?
For myself, I always pick 8-ball because that way, you're at least going to guarantee the chance of, shooting.
And you see a lot of the guys pick. You see a lot of the guys pick 8-ball. So I'm just kind of curious what the thought process there.
Yeah, it's very tough to run. Break and run 5 racks of 8-ball, but not so difficult to run 7 of 9-ball.
Right.
If you have the skill.
So David's preparing the rack here. Looks like they've opted to use the wood rack versus the magic rack that we've seen for some of the matches. Yeah. Brian will have the break. What do you think of the magic rack?
Not a fan, actually.
Okay.
I like the wooden rack.
Don't be shy.
I like the wooden rack. You try to rack them tight with the wooden rack, but there's always little gaps here and there, so the break always changes. It's never identical. Except, of course, in the match I was in, the guy made 3 9-balls in a row. But,
oh, okay, I did see that match, yeah. Now, you guys were using the wood rack, right?
Yeah, we were using the wood rack, yep.
Yeah, that was quite a comeback. Was that Rochester, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
that was a good match. Well. All right, so what do you think of what Brian's got going on here? He pocketed a ball on the break.
Yep, we got a little cluster, but there's enough balls around it to be able to develop the balls that are tied up. Left himself a good angle here.
Brian, 41 years old, and that's about all the info he put on his bio sheet here, Stuart, so I guess he thinks we know who he is. But, again, the defending champion here. If you're just tuning in, folks, I know some people just joining us. You're seeing live coverage of the U.S. Amateur Championship. And, Stuart, one of these two players, of course, they're both undefeated. One of them will be moving on to the final round if they win here. So, big match, folks.
Yeah, You know,
the
defending
hot seat
champions.
match, right? The proverbial hot seat.
Absolutely.
We were talking before the match, so I don't know why they call it the hot seat, because it seems like you get cold waiting, right?
You
We see that
absolutely
quite a
do.
bit, so
Yep.
should be the cold seat match. But yes, one of these two is advancing to the finals. The other will have to have a little more work cut out for them, have to come through the one-loss side. So
Yeah, it's almost sometimes better to do that. You know,
stay warm.
Stay warm.
Yeah.
Stay in stroke.
David Rowell here currently at the table. David again out of Birmingham, Alabama. Been playing pool for 41 years.
Is that all?
That's it. I won't give away his age, but it's the vast majority of his life. He was our 2000 champion. Beat John Binion that year. He's got 3 runner-up finishes under his belt as well, so no stranger to the pressure that comes with making it this far.
Absolutely.
In the
well
event.
Seasoned for the event. He's got a tough run out here. A couple of balls tied up.
Again, David trying to kind of navigate not just this shot, but the several shots to come. One of the things that you see here in the U.S. Amateur Championship. Stuart, I'm curious what you think of the format, the 8-ball, 9-ball format. Is that something that you really enjoy playing, being able to?
Definitely is, yeah. I like the Masters format. It's something different, you know.
Right. So you also play Masters?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, my team was in Las Vegas this year, out of New Jersey.
So you've got a little bit of the New Jersey accent as well as the Scottish accent, right? If the folks at home are detecting that, yeah. Originally from Scotland.
Yep, and now living in New York. I really only see the one trouble ball here for the run out.
David tries to sort things out here. I'll remind folks you can go to CompuSport.ca to follow all the players in this year's event. We'll go ahead and pin that post up. I know a lot of folks always asking how various players have done.
It's also a nice feature you guys have added to this tournament, is having the online brackets, online charts. Nice feature.
Nice to kind of be able to track when you'd play and that kind of thing, much easier.
Yeah, definitely. David was able to navigate his way to the most difficult ball that he had to shoot at. So now it's looking pretty good from here.
Again, these guys just getting started in this race to 8. They'll play 5 games at 8-ball. And they'll switch to the 9-ball set, where we may see up to 8 games of 9-ball, depending on how long this match goes. David Rowell currently at the table. A lot of folks here in attendance at Strokers stopping what they're doing to kind of take this match in.
Yeah, it's nice to see there's a lot of locals here as well, which is nice.
I would imagine it'll continue to fill up throughout the day, leading up to the final round. David doing a nice job to kind of navigate the table here.
Yeah, he got on his the one difficult ball that he had pretty nicely.
David calls his pocket here.
Yeah, somewhat easy shot for the to take the lead in the first game.
And he drops the 8-ball, and as Stewart said, takes an early 1-0 lead here over Brian Parks. Again, this is a race to 7. David now leading by 1. We have 4 games of 8-ball to go before the players turn their attention to the 9-ball set. Of course, both these players very familiar with each other.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we've got a moment as Brian Parks prepares the rack there. We should remind people that if you're interested in competing in this event next year, 2018, you can go to our website, usamateurchampionship.com, and register for one of the preliminary rounds. And if you do well enough in a preliminary round, you will advance here to the championship rounds that are this year held in Strokers in beautiful Palm Harbor, Florida, just across the bay from Tampa. What do you think of this area, Stuart? I mean, you're coming from New York, right?
Yeah.
It's nice and warm and sunny. I don't know what the weather's been like in New York, but it was about 40 degrees
cold
for a high in St. Louis, yeah.
Yeah, it's getting pretty cold.
Not a bad couple days down here. David with the break here.
Nice break.
So you mentioned the match yesterday that you had on the streaming table, and I'll remind folks you can actually go back and watch any of the matches we've streamed on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/APA Leagues. But you mentioned the 3 9 on the breaks in a row. I mean, how do you – it's got to be so difficult, right? Because there's nothing you can do, right?
There's absolutely nothing you can do. Yeah.
And just to see it one after another, I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah. Well, obviously, you try to – I changed the balls that were surrounding the 9, the setup of them. Didn't seem to work, though. It was
I mean, what can you do other than tip your cap to the guy? Exactly. It's a pretty amazing little run, right?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. And then I tried to, break and emulate where he was breaking from, but it did not work out for me very well. So it's pretty interesting. He found that break spot well.
A lot of folks tuning in early on this Saturday afternoon. Appreciate you watching. I'm guessing a lot of folks from California rooting for Brian. A lot of folks from the Southeast, specifically Alabama, rooting for David, who's currently at the table. Again, David leading 1-0 over Brian. Seems to be fairly in control of this table. You see any issues here, Stuart?
Not right now. Yeah, he got a nice open break in that second match, in the second rack. The ball set up nicely on that one.
Very quickly, David Rowell up 2-0 in a race to 7. Once again, Brian Parks, defending champion, will prepare the rack. David will prepare to break. I think she was actually talking about the USAM page in her post, but she said if you go to US Amateur Championship page, it's fine, but she said poolplayers.com, tournament information, USAM, reading through the info. Not seeing the info.
Is this a new thing for you guys this year? You're opening up the registration early.
Yeah, we figured we get so many folks tuning into the streams now, and they're asking, how do I get involved? How do I make it to next year's event? So we figured instead of making folks wait until April to register, we'll just let them register now.
Yeah.
While they're thinking about it and while there's a lot of attention on the event. So it's that instant gratification, So
Absolutely.
we're going to see you again next year.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. Now, I always ask the guys this. I mean, because you finished 4th?
Yeah, a few years ago.
A couple years back, Stuart finished 4th. Curious what brings you guys back year after year You know, we hear
Just
from a lot of we hear
That's
from a lot of people on the streams. Oh, there's no prize money and da da da. But you know, we try to kind of tell people it's about a little bit more than that. So I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. What?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's you know, it's a national title. I mean, you want to, you know, against basically the best players in the APA that
Right.
qualified from you know, throughout the country. So it's a tough event to win.
Right. So it's about the notoriety. It's about the
Yeah,
title,
absolutely.
right?
It's all about the title. That's, you know, that's basically what it is.
And I'm curious your thoughts on a guy like Brian being in the event, because of course people say, well, he's won it so many times. Would you want to win the event if Brian Parks wasn't in it?
Well, honestly, you want to beat the best guys.
Exactly.
So, you know, that's the gratification part of it. You
I
know?
would have a hard time winning the title and somebody saying, well, did you beat Brian Parks? No, he wasn't. He wasn't
Yeah,
there
he
this
wasn't
year.
there this year.
Nobody
yeah.
wants that. Nobody wants to win that way. So, well, good. I appreciate the verification straight from one of our perennial contenders here at Strokers. Brian finally getting an opportunity. It's been a while here.
Yeah, pretty tough table though. First shot anyway.
Now, Stuart, if you're playing this table, what are you going after first?
Myself, probably the stripes, I would think.
You going high balls, huh?
Yeah, I'm gonna go high balls first.
Well, we'll see if Brian agrees with you here.
The high balls control a couple of the pockets that are blocking the way of the solids.
Brian agrees with you.
Yeah, nice
Uses
shot.
a jump shot to pocket one of those high balls, one of those striped balls in the corner pocket. So where do you play back in New York? I don't.
I play at Steinway Billiards.
Okay, popular place, right? They did the
is,
TV
yeah.
show about it.
Absolutely.
The show The Hustler, which I really liked, and I would have loved to have seen picked up for a season 2. But that's a popular.
It's a very, very popular pool room.
Yeah.
A lot of very, very good players play there.
Right. Oh.
Oh.
Well.
A little fortunate.
Sometimes it takes the rolls, the lucky rolls, to be the champ, and Brian gets one there. Wow.
It certainly does.
Looks like a
The
Dr.
little
Q
things.
trick shot there kind of thing. Florian Kohler executed something like that. See if Brian can take advantage here.
Yeah, that was very fortunate. He got absolutely perfect position on the two toughest balls he had in the run out. So things are looking pretty good now.
You're liking his odds from here on out?
Absolutely.
It always amazes me when you see guys get to this stage of the game, and a guy like David or Brian, they rarely miss. You
Yeah.
know, it's just amazing.
Yeah, the break is very important at this level of pool.
Again, if you're just tuning in, you're seeing final day coverage of the U.S. Amateur Championship presented by the American Pool Players Association here at Strokers in Palm Harbor, Florida. Defending champion Brian Parks currently at the table, trailing 2-0 to David Rowell, although Brian looks to be in fairly good shape.
He only has his shot down the rail here. Little draw to get back to the 8 in the side pocket.
Some folks asking about champions coming back. We actually, the defending champion is always invited back to defend their title the following year. So one of the benefits of winning the U.S. Amateur Championship was Brian pockets the 8-ball in the corner there to cut David's lead in half. Richard Andrews thinking about coming back next year. Be good to see you again. It's been a while. Hope you're feeling well. All right, folks, buckle up. This could be a good one.
Yeah,
A long one.
It's a long one.
One of the hill variety. Again, hot seat match. One of these players moving on to the finals. The other will move to the one-loss bracket. So anything exciting that you've done other than play pool since you've been here, Stuart? Like how long are you down in Florida for, just for the tournament?
Just for the tournament, yep.
Yeah.
Drove in from New York on Thursday.
Drove down, okay.
Yeah, on Thursday night, and I've basically been here ever since.
Ryan with the break there.
Came up dry. That one.
That'll bring David back to the table.
Thankful there's a couple of balls tied up, so it's not an easy out.
Again, this is the third game of 5 that you'll see. I'm sorry, fourth game of 5 we'll see in the 8-ball set before we start playing some 9-ball. We were just talking on the way over, though, this morning about how it seems like we've seen more players starting in the 8-ball set, but you kind of indicated that's you every time, right? You're always picking 8-ball when it's your option.
Yep.
And is that what you've seen throughout the tournament, pretty much?
Actually, normally, yes, but this year a few people have chosen 9-ball first. I don't know if that's just due to the new faces that are here, and you know, trying something different. I don't know.
Huh.
But it's kind of odd when they choose 9-ball first.
As David surveys the table, I want to remind folks, just kind of looking over some of the comments, this event is actually open to both APA and non-APA members. Of course, it's presented by APA, but you do not have to be an APA member to participate. We've got players from all over the United States, some players from Canada that came down. And again, you're seeing the best of the best amateur players. And you got 2 of them front and center right here.
Yeah, and speaking of the Canadians, there was actually a lot of a good showing from there this year. I think I saw maybe 4 players from Canada this year.
I'm sure the warm weather this time of year doesn't hurt, right?
No, it's a good draw for them to come here. He's trying to figure on how to break out the one ball that's tied up with the solids.
So you said you play out of Steinway. How big is Steinway? I mean, I've seen it on TV, but I've never really seen it in its, like, I don't know how many tables are there. And
There's over 20 tables in here.
okay. All 9 foot?
Yeah, all
okay.
9-foot tables, yeah.
You don't see places with that, you know, a lot of places with that many 9-foot tables anymore.
Yeah, there's in the Northeast, there's more 9-foot tables than I think anywhere else in the country. They have all the smaller bar box tables.
Yeah.
I don't, you know, the pool halls that I venture to throughout the country.
You play primarily on 9-foot tables?
Yeah, mostly, yeah.
Of course, that's one of the unique things about this particular event, at least in relation to what APA does, is it is played all in 9-foot tables. And most of our championships played on the 7-foot tables out in Las Vegas, so be a little difficult to haul 309-foot tables out there, though. So when people say, well, why not use 9-foots? That's one of the reasons. There are several, but that would be one of them. They are not easy to transport.
Yeah, absolutely. A relatively easy shot here. He's just looking to set himself up for position.
David again taking a good look at the table, just kind of plotting his course.
Yep, kind of running out of options to break the 5-ball out there.
So is that what he's looking at now? I mean, he knows he's got the next ball pocketed. It's that 5-ball that he's
definitely
really trying to figure out. So he opts to go
Creative
ahead and
shot.
solve the 5-ball problem there. Break it out a little bit.
It was an interesting choice of shot there. Kind of do or die, really.
Would you have taken the?
I would not have shot that.
Yeah, I was
ball
gonna
at
say.
that
I think it's the
particular
2-ball
line.
there. Is that what you would have shot?
Yeah. Pretty much just gave up a wide open table now.
Again, Brian Parks currently at the table in red. Brian, the defending champion, 4-time champion. A lot of folks around here have been saying drive to 5 this week, which I looked it up on the internet, Stuart. That's actually something the Patriots came up with. I'm sure you're not a Patriots fan out of New York, right?
I'm not. And
So you're not a
Brian
big
is
fan
also
of that
not.
statement. Drive to 5. So we'll see. One match away from at least making it to the finals here.
Yeah, this table's looking pretty good now. Just connect the dots at this point.
You know Brian pretty well.
I do.
I know you guys kind of congregate together. A lot of the players here kind of.
Yeah, we've been pretty good friends now for a few years.
And you guys just met through the tournament here?
We did, yeah.
Cool.
I met him actually when this tournament was held in Atlanta
Oh, okay.
many moons ago.
Yeah. Back at Mr. Q's. Big pool room there in the Atlanta area. So you
Yeah, it
guys
was
have
nice.
just kind of stayed in touch since. You on
Yeah.
the East Coast, him on the West Coast. That's cool.
Yeah, we see each other every year here. Kind of bumping each other in Vegas as well.
Right.
You know, as the tournaments go on.
Of course, this particular event is a non-handicapped event. I know some folks have asked on the comments or in the comments about the players' skill levels, although I'm fairly certain both are 7 and 9s
I
in their respective
definitely
formats,
agree.
but no skill levels being used here. So seeing two former champions, or I should say a former champion and the defending champion here. So
Come up a little short.
Stuart, at this point, David regretting that decision to go after that 9-ball, I'm guessing, huh?
I definitely think so, yeah. It was definitely the turning point in this particular game.
So Brian will pocket the 8-ball, and we're tied at 2, folks. Brian will now have the break. David will prepare the rack. If you're interested in participating in next year's U.S. Amateur Championship, again, you can go to usamateurchampionship.com and get registered for one of the preliminary rounds. What preliminary did you play out of?
In Clifton Billiards. in
Clifton
New Jersey.
Billiards, okay. So how many guys out of there qualified?
I think there were 6.
6 of you
actually,
guys?
yeah.
Okay. Always kind of depends on how many players are in each particular preliminary determines, you know, how many advance. So I was curious.
Yeah.
So who are some of the other guys that came out of that preliminary with you?
Honestly, I don't even know.
Not even remember, huh?
That's bad, I know.
Brian with the break here. Again, you're seeing now the 5th and final game of 8-ball that'll be played.
A little unfortunate with the leave.
Again, if you're just tuning in, you're watching final day coverage of this year's U.S. Amateur Championship from Strokers in Palm Harbor, Florida. Seeing Brian Parks and David Rowell currently tied 2-2 in a race to 7. Brian in red, David seated in green. One of these players will move on to the final match. The other will move to the one-loss bracket. We'll have a extra match to try to make it to the final.
I think got a little straight on that ball.
Any players catch your eye this year that you weren't familiar with or that you saw play and came away impressed by?
Not really any new ones, just the kind of the regular folks that are here.
Yeah.
Which there are many really, really good players here.
Right.
It's always it seems to be the same faces that show up here. It's pretty interesting.
Which is pretty amazing since they have to qualify, right?
Exactly,
I mean, it's
yeah.
not like they're just signing up and showing up. They're
right.
going to, you know, you said you played out of Clifton and Brian played, well, Brian gets invited back, but David plays out of somewhere. And everybody here plays out of a preliminary and has to perform well enough at that level to advance here. So
That's right.
when you see a guy several years in a row, a pretty impressive feat to have made it all the way back.
Yeah, everybody's already a winner, you know,
Sure.
that's here. So that you know everybody can play.
Now, do you do any extra practice or any different routine to prepare for a tournament like this? Just kind of playing like normal?
Yeah, just play normal. There's no extra. I play a lot. So
Yeah. How much does a guy like you play pool? I mean, each
well,
day?
You're supposed to play every day, but honestly, I really don't do that anymore. But I used to, though. It was a daily occurrence. You play maybe 4 or 5 hours a day.
Wow.
Haven't done that for a few years, though.
So you're like a regular at Steinway, I'm guessing, right?
Not so much Steinway, but more for tournaments at Steinway.
Okay.
I practice at other, multiple other pool rooms in New York.
New York's got a
all
huge
over.
pool scene, too, I know.
Very, very
Amsterdam is another place up there, right?
Yeah, there's many, many pool rooms, which is awesome.
Plenty
Not
of
far to
places to
travel.
play, yeah.
Yep.
This is a race to 7 for those folks that are asking.
Yeah, very nice cut there. I think it looks like he's a little out of line on the next shot. Get position. Playing for the gap. That's good. Shot.
Sure. Yeah, we had another of the participants that's back watching with us talking about the amount of time these guys will take to be very deliberate in what they're doing, not just on the shot they're playing, but the shot ahead. As Brian now takes a 3-2 lead, his first lead of the match. He's now won the last 3 games of the 8-ball set. And they'll lose a few balls from the table, and they'll switch to the 9-ball set here. Always interesting, Stuart, to see how that kind of changes the momentum of a match when the game changes. I mean,
Yeah.
for you, does that play in? Of course, I guess it played into big, the match
certainly
that we
did,
saw with you last night, where switched to 9-ball. And I think you won the first game of the 9-ball
did,
set,
yep.
but then the 3-9 on the breaks in a row really
Yeah,
kind of changed things.
Sure did.
little bit quieter in here this morning than it's been the last couple days.
Yeah,
It's
definitely. Yeah.
last couple days been full of people. Of course, still fairly early pool player time here in Florida. A little bit rainy out today, so some folks are slowly trickling in, I'd imagine, as we move into the final round. It'll start to fill up quite a bit.
Yep.
David Rowell at the table here. Not looking overly enthusiastic about the lay of the balls here.
Yeah, this is not such a good position here. Might see a safety shot coming up soon. Not sure what he was trying there. I think he was trying to save him, leave the cue ball nice and tight behind the ball. But, left Brian a pretty standard jump shot.
Brian will grab his jump cue. I know for those watching that are familiar with APA events, they're saying you can use a jump cue. Of course, you can use the jump cue here in U.S. Amateur Championship competition as well as our Masters program.
Nice
Brian
shot.
executes that very nicely. And he's seeing anything overly challenging from here on out?
Not on this rack. These are looking pretty good here.
So if Brian does what we would expect and stays in stroke here,
He overshot that one just a little bit. Uncharacteristic miss there.
seems like every time we assume what they will do, they do the opposite. So
The commentator curse, as they say. Pretty fortunate not to leave any easy shot to make the ball. And David will be playing a safe. Played a nice shot there. And Brian's got a tough shot here. Difficult to not leave a shot for David.
Brian again wanting to be very deliberate, knowing that any mistake could lead to David running out here. So that's got to be a tough part of the playing guys like this too, Stuart, is knowing that just the smallest mistake and you may be sitting for several racks, right?
It normally costs you 2 or 3 games if you
Yeah.
make one little mistake. Yeah. Even a dry break can cost you a few games. As
Sure.
well. Nice shot there.
Opts to play safe.
He's going to have to get a little fortunate with the leave after this shot. It's a nice shot from David.
That 5 ball.
Passes the 9. I think we might see him shoot it, but if not, thinking another safety is about to come into play. Yeah, looks like it goes past.
Brian finally pockets that troublesome 5 ball.
He's got a nice angle on the shot to come up for the 8. Nice position of shot. Force follow. It's looking like it's going to be 4-2 shortly. Nice run out there by Brian.
So Brian now takes a 4-2 lead in this race to 7. We are now in the 9 ball set. Players will continue to play 9 ball for the duration of this match. David Rowell in the green preparing the rack. Brian Parks in the red preparing to break. You're watching live coverage of the U.S. Amateur Championship from Strokers in Palm Harbor, Florida. The 3rd and final day of the Open Division here.
Pockets 1 ball. A nice open table to work with.
I didn't see, what did he pocket there? The 1's still there.
Something before.
It's a little tricky with the darker colored balls. They kind of all look the same on the table to us, so looks like a bunch of purple and black. Appears to be shooting the 2 ball here.
Yep, this is a nice shot to get on the 3 ball. A little right-hand English, I think. Yep. Hold up the ball.
Some folks on the commenting of the stream debating the classification of amateur versus pro, and that is a tough one to define, folks. APA generally looks at a case-by-case basis at players to determine whether they still have amateur status, a number of different things that we look at. But there's no real simple way to define that, not as there is in other sports like a baseball or a football per se.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the one thing you hear about a lot of tournament and pool is the rating system.
Right.
It's always a topic of conversation. Smart shot there.
Some folks commenting Shane Van Boning. We would definitely consider him a professional. So you do not have to worry about him qualifying for the U.S. Amateur Championship. So should be exciting to see him next month, though, in the Moscone Cup. You follow the Moscone Cup? I mean, I know you're from Europe, so do you? Are you?
Of course, I'm rooting for
you
Europe.
rooting for? Okay. So you're not rooting for the underdog. I see.
No,
I
not
see.
At all. They have U.S. has a pretty strong team this year, though.
Yeah. Some of the European guys, not names I'm real familiar with, that made the team. I know there's a young kid that's like 20 years old. I think they said the youngest ever, and a couple of familiar names. I think Ralph and Jason Shaw, but no Albin.
And he's normally a pretty solid player on the team as well. There's a nice jump shot from David. It's not an easy shot here. Shooting off the rail and long and straight.
He called that one, Stewart. Tough shot. He's unable to pocket it.
Come up with a nice shot here. They got position for the 6 ball. John believes on the top rail. Pointed to where he wanted to get the cue ball, so let's see how close.
Is that what he's identifying there? He's kind of showing himself where he'd like to leave it.
Yep, giving himself the mental picture.
Looks like he did.
I think he got a little
further than he wanted. Yeah.
That worked out even better.
Of course, you saw David and Brian both using jump cues. Some folks again asking for clarification in the U.S. Amateur Championship, as well as APA Masters, you are allowed to use a jump cue, unlike standard 8-ball or 9-ball league play where jump cues are not allowed. David now on the 9-ball. Which he pockets without issue. Now trails by just 1 game. Brian still leading 4 games to 3. Brian will prepare the rack, and David will have the ever important break here coming up.
I think players are going to have a little break.
Do you tend to take breaks in your matches? I mean, you like to just want to kind of get it over with?
Yeah, you kind of just want to stay with the momentum.
Yeah, even if the momentum is going against you?
Yeah, well, you always want to try and work through it.
Yeah.
I don't like giving my opponent, the time to sit there and think, the momentum's on my side. I'd rather try to break it quickly.
Right. Well, we have a few minutes as the players take a momentary step away from the table. Remind you folks that if you're interested in competing in the U.S. Amateur Championship, you can go to usamateurchampionship.com to get registered for the preliminary rounds and compete in those preliminary rounds. The top players will advance to the championship rounds.
Which, again, is going to be held here next year?
I hope so, man. You've seen the sunshine and the beautiful hotel they put us up in, so I'm hoping to come back here next year.
Yeah, it's definitely a great venue.
Strokers obviously has been doing some renovations too, really kind of getting a facelift in some of the flooring and the exterior here. If you've never been to Strokers in Palm Harbor, you're down in this way in Florida, I would recommend stopping in. Great facility. Of course, their owner, Jose Del Rio, is also a pool player. We've seen him a number of times in the U.S. Amateur Championship, so he makes sure the table conditions are always good. And of course, we've mentioned a number of times, but the food's pretty
awesome.
good here too, for
Yes,
especially when you consider we're in a pool room. But actually made Alvin Nelson's top 5 pool rooms to eat in.
What a feat that must be.
Yeah. And if you're wanting to know where a certain player has finished or if they're still in the tournament, you can, of course, go to the CompuSport.ca website and track any of the players, including Stewart's performance this year in the U.S. Amateur Championship. Of course, Stuart Warnock's been sitting in with us for this hot seat match. As we mentioned, one of these players will move on to the final round. One of these players will move to the one-loss bracket. So still quite a bit of pool to be played here at Strokers. Should be exciting finale as we move ever closer. We're hopeful to have Jeanette Lee, the Black Widow, here with us a little bit later today. Of course, she's based here out of Tampa now and runs our APA league. So she said she'd try to stop by and maybe hop on the stream with us and maybe answer some questions, that kind of thing. Give her analysis of what's going on here at Strokers. Looks like David's back and ready to go. Just waiting on Brian. Of course, David from Birmingham, Alabama. Been playing pool for 41 years. Started playing pool with his brother. Stuart, how'd you start playing pool? Start playing over in Scotland?
I did not. I actually started when I moved to America.
Okay, started playing in New York.
Yep, started playing in New York, yep.
And what brought you to the States?
A change of scenery.
Change of scenery, all right. So you come to the United States, you wander into Steinway, and you fall in love with the game? Is that how it goes?
Yeah, it was actually another pool room in White Plains, New York, that I first went to, and I was there basically every hour of the day.
Wow.
For the first 3 or 4 years I was here.
So did somebody like twist your arm to get you in there, or did you just happen to stop in to see what was going on?
That's exactly what happened, yeah. I just stopped in there one day and hooked up with a couple of guys in there, started playing, and
you
the
were
rest
hooked.
is history.
You were hooked. Everybody's got a different story of how they fell in love with the game, but that's usually what you hear is, you know, it didn't take long, right? It was kind of a love at first sight type of thing you hear, especially for the guys that kind of get to this level of skill. So very cool. And any tournaments coming up for you the rest of the year? Anything else you play in?
No, nothing else. Pretty quiet for the rest of the year.
You gonna lay low and wait for Christmas?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my next big one will probably be the Super Billiards Expo next
Okay.
year. No derby for me.
Looks like the players are just about ready to resume here. Brian just gonna take one more look at that rack. With a little oversight there from David. Now they're looking, Stuart, for what? They're looking for different gaps and things?
Gaps, yeah, absolutely. The tables have been racking pretty good here this week. There hasn't really been many issues with racking that I've seen. Actually, especially on this table.
And they're looking to get it as tight as possible,
tight as
right?
possible,
Make sure they're not throwing the
Absolutely.
9-ball in the corner, or not to bring up any bad memories, I know. So if you're just joining us, Stuart had it was a hill match, though.
It was.
So you did overcome. You overcame, but Stuart was up with 5-1.
Yeah.
You guys switched to the, well, you had just switched to the 9-ball set. And Rochester, what was his first name?
Dennis, I believe.
Dennis or Daniel Rochester. 3-9 on the breaks in a row. You came back and got another one, so you guys did go hill, but ultimately it was not to be.
It was not.
David with the break.
Nice solid break. A little unfortunate with the leave.
Brian Parks, of course, is from Bakersfield, California. Some folks asking about that. Some folks asking about the Magic Rack. So the Magic Rack is allowed at this event. However, both players have to agree to use it. So I'm not sure if one of these players preferred the wood rack or not. Of course, we were talking to Stuart a little bit earlier. Some players, not a huge fan of the Magic Rack, prefer the wood rack. So you are seeing them use the wood rack here in this match.
Not an easy shot to get safe on this one. You got there. Nice
Nicely
shot.
done. Brian has conveniently hidden that one ball there in that little Bermuda triangle on the table. The 9 ball. It looks like the 8 and the 2 ball.
Yeah, the 2. We might see the 9 in play here.
Brian currently leading this race to 7, 4 games to 3. David Rowell at the table in green. Brian seated in red.
He played the smart shot. He didn't hit it hard to chase after the 9 ball. Control the cue ball.
Now seeing a safety play here. Neither of these players wanting to give anything here that could lead to a run out by their opponent.
Absolutely. It's a very close match.
As we expected it to be, of course, we mentioned early on, but you're seeing 2 former champions. You're seeing a former champion in green and the defending champion in red. So pretty much everything we anticipated this match would be. Both these players very much in stroke, playing well, not making many errors. David
Almost got
narrowly
lucky.
misses pocketing the 1 and maybe the 5 up in the corner even. That'll bring Brian back to the table.
Kind of a pretty tough shot here, though. Well played.
Nicely executed there by Brian to pocket the 1 in the corner.
Fall naturally for the next position-wise for the next ball.
Again, the score is currently 4-3 in favor of Brian at the table in red. In a race to 7. Brian certainly looks like he's got the pattern identified here that he likes.
Absolutely. And he's playing like a man on a mission as well, which is good. He wants that 5th title.
Pockets the 8 in the corner, leaves himself nicely on that 9 ball. Follows the 9 ball in, now leading 5 games to 3. Brian Parks over David Rowell in this race to 7. Both these players inching ever closer to the final round, which is scheduled for 7 p.m. Eastern, but I believe we're doing continuous play today, so might get a little bit of an early start on that, depending on how the matches leading up to it go. One of the things that we saw with the ladies division, Stuart, was the winner of the hot seat match sat down for a while, got a little cold, if you will, and sure enough, her opponent that she had beaten 2 matches earlier came back to win it. So always an interesting dynamic how that
definitely is. Yeah, you
that
see
ticket
that a lot.
straight to the finals is. And I know a number of times that we've seen Brian win this event, he's actually done it through the one-loss side after losing the hot seat match. So you just never know.
That's right. Yeah, it seems to happen more often than not. The person coming from the one-loss side seems to take the win. He opted to push after the break.
So push shot there for Brian. Again, push shots and jump cues allowed in the U.S. Amateur Championship, as well as in APA Masters. But for folks that are not familiar with the U.S. Amateur, this is an event that is open to both APA and non-APA members. So obviously there's no handicapping used in these matches.
I think if he's looking at making this 2-ball, I think there's a possibility he may scratch in the corner pocket.
I think Alvin's getting antsy over there. He'll be back shortly, folks. Don't worry. We're giving him a little rest. Saving his sanity.
Yep.
Still a long day ahead.
The hardest working man in the room. Brian actually went for that shot and overcut it.
A little bit of a window of opportunity now for David.
Yeah, you don't get too many opportunities.
Especially against Brian. Now, this has been a pretty back and forth match. You know, David opened up with 2 wins. Brian came right back and
took the lead. He has his chance here.
and he fails to capitalize on it, although
A little
I don't know if he
leave.
did Brian any favors, yeah.
Yep.
This is a race to 7. If you're tuning in for the duration, you might think we sound like a broken record, but believe it or not, folks are kind of tuning in and out, especially through the Facebook Live feed, so a lot of the same questions pop up frequently, but this is a race to 7. They played 5 games. Oh, and a miscue there by Brian Parks. Big mistake. As we were saying, though, the players played 5 games of 8-ball, and now they're in the midst of their 9-ball set, of which they may play as many as 8 games, depending on the score and the outcome here. But Brian, with kind of an uncharacteristic miscue there, he's going to give ball in hand to David.
This is a very important rack here for David as well.
And that is
5'4" as opposed to 6'3" is a huge difference.
some folks asking about Henry Brote. I believe Henry is still alive in the tournament. You can go to the CompuSport.ca website or download the app and kind of see how he's doing. Of course, that's King Henry.
Another multiple-time
3-time champion, yeah.
Yep.
In fact, it's my understanding he's the one that drew Brian out of retirement.
He certainly did, yeah.
Brian had kind of said, you know, he'd won enough, and then when Henry won his 3rd, he actually called Brian out on the
Yes,
on the
he
video
did.
and
He
said,
did.
Brian. So, you know, Henry was not satisfied to win an event that didn't feature Brian Parks either. So Brian is back. Henry is here. A lot of former champions. I think we had 8 overall this year qualified for the event. So Henry did win 7-4 over Jeffrey Cusada. Close enough, probably. So Henry will move on. I believe that's the one-loss side that they were in. So Jeffrey will be complete from his journey here at the U.S. Amateur Championship. Again, only a handful of players remain at this point.
A little too hard on that ball. Still makeable though. Brian sitting in the chair contemplating his miscue.
David pockets the 9 there. Pulls once again within 1 game of Brian in this race to 7. Very much the match we had expected to see, which was a close one. Very few mistakes made. Lots of shots pocketed. If you're just tuning in, you're watching final day coverage of the U.S. Amateur Championship Strokers here in Palm Harbor. David Rowell with the break.
A very nice one.
Henry Gross, Jeremy Edwards, table 4.
All right, so it sounds like Henry's going to play Jeremy again. Is that right? Overhearing the match called. I'm going to pull up my CompuSport app here and take a look.
Henry's going to be playing Jeremy Edwards.
Henry and Jeremy Edwards. So Henry just defeated Jeffrey Cusada, now playing Jeremy Edwards. I think Jeremy came into the day undefeated, actually. Might have suffered his first loss to Brian in the 11 a.m. round.
Yep. And then the winner of that match will face the loser of this one.
So we're getting ever closer, folks, to what should be an outstanding final round here. Cap off this year's U.S. Amateur Championship. Brian making sure to have ample chalk on his cue now.
Yeah, doesn't want any more slip-ups. Great
Nice
shot.
jump shot. I'll be honest, Stuart, one of my favorite parts about watching the U.S. Amateur format is when they pull out the jump cue. I don't know what it is about the jump cue, but just
A new dynamic.
excitement.
To the sport
Yeah,
for
I mean,
for,
it's,
for the
you
APA
know,
players.
yeah. And a lot of folks always wonder why we don't allow it in league play. There's a couple of reasons for it. One, it definitely tends to favor the better player.
Absolutely.
APA leagues are generally, we're looking to get non-pool players involved. So we do allow it in USAM, we allow it in Masters, but not in regular league play. But the other issue is not a lot of location owners are real fond of having
Yeah, for the
twos and
amateur,
threes busting out jump cues
exactly, yeah. Can
and
do a lot
diving
of
into the
damage.
tables with them. So that's the other side of that reasoning. So for those folks that I'm sure are wondering, it's a beautiful thing when the player knows how to use it correctly, right? It
And
can be a
very
very
ugly thing.
damaging thing otherwise.
Yeah. Very nice safety shot there from Brian. Thinned the three and went around the table to get safe.
Now I got to imagine at this point of the match, both these guys know that their turn at the table could potentially be their last, right? I mean, it's not unheard of to see one of these guys come out and run 1 or 2 racks in a row. So
Absolutely. I think that's why you're seeing a little bit more.
a lot of
safety play
pressure.
now.
A lot of pressure here. Curious who the folks at home are cheering for here. Are you rooting for Brian? Are you rooting for David? Let us hear from you.
We're going to see another safety here from Brian.
Got a David, got a Brian, got a Brian, got a David.
Seems pretty 50-50.
Yes, 50-50 so far. Of course, Richard Andrews is rooting for the guy from Alabama. Very 50-50. All right, maybe now it's a few more Bryans. So interesting dynamic. A lot of Brian fans, yet a lot of folks saying, how come Brian's still allowed to play? So it's can never satisfy everyone all the time,
That's right.
unless you're Alvin Nelson. We've had so much fun with Alvin this time around. This guy works
Great
his
shot, yeah.
his tail off, bringing out the coverage here. It's not an easy thing to broadcast pool for 15, 18 hours a day nonstop, and he's been doing a super job. We appreciate all his hard work. I know it's kind of a thankless job, especially if you focus on the internet folks.
As long as you're happy, I'm happy.
Yeah, the internet folks are a tough crowd to please, though.
You got to have fun with it. All right, so David Rowell here in the green, folks. Currently trailing by 1 in this race to 7.
He's
Trying to draw even.
a little straight on this ball to get closer to the 5. A nice shot. David with a real nice position to play there. That might be just the slightest of off angles here. He was able to pull it straight back, which is nice. Nice easy straight shot in for the win.
David Rowell pockets the 9 in the corner, and we are now deadlocked at 5, folks. Buckle your seatbelts. It's going to be a wild ride to the race to 7 here. Both players now needing just 2 games to secure a spot in the finals here at the U.S. Amateur Championship. Stuart, this match has kind of lived up to its billing, eh?
Certainly
5-5. No disappointment here. Just a lot of
for
good
the
pool
viewers.
playing, yeah. It's a good one to watch. Hope you folks are enjoying it. Looks like our viewership has spiked a little bit, which is good. Looks like a lot of folks are taking it in on a Sunday afternoon. We'll try to keep you guys apprised of that match going on between Henry and Jeremy Edwards as best we can.
A nice break by David. We're going to see a safety next.
David looks to utilize the bridge here. Are you a bridge guy or a rake guy?
No, I'm a bridge guy.
Bridge guy, okay.
Yeah. Oh boy. I actually think he might even be able to see the one. A fortunate roll there for David.
So not the intended outcome there.
Definitely not. He was definitely playing the safety there, and a fortunate bump into the 3.
Again, neither of these players wanting to make a mistake at this point in the match, knowing it could very well be their last turn at the table. You heard David there.
Yep. He knew where it was going.
Knew it was heading towards that corner, and that was a big one. We'll see.
Could be a big momentum swing right there.
It's interesting, Stuart. I hear a lot of these players when I ask them, you know, who's a tough opponent and this and that, almost, you know, that the best players are always responding, it's not really my opponent, it's me. It's how I'm managing. And again, we see kind of there the mistake by David results in a very quick combination shot by Brian, who's now on the hill.
Who's now on the hill.
So
very slim margins are
yeah,
between winning and losing.
so Brian Parks now on the hill, folks, leads 6-5, needs just 1 game to advance to the final. David will prepare the rack. Brian will prepare to break. David will hope for another opportunity here.
That's all he can do right now, man. Brian's had a few 9 balls on the break this week.
When you're in David's position here, right, knowing your kind of backs against the wall, what do you want to see in your opponent's break?
A miscue.
A miscue? I mean, you're hoping for a dry break. You're hoping,
break,
yeah.
Absolutely. Yep, and a shot at the 1 ball, preferably.
All right. Again, Brian Parks on the hill. It's an opportunity to advance to the finals of the U.S. Amateur Championship once again.
Nice controlled break there. Didn't want him to scratch.
Well, he got the dry break.
He did.
The shot at the 1. Maybe.
Maybe.
A little tough to tell from this angle. Oh, yeah, it looks like
Yeah,
he
looks
feels
like
good
he
about
got
it.
Yeah. He got a tough shot on the 2, though. Have to play the 2-7 combination.
What's the key to a combination shot like this? I always, as an amateur player, struggle with my combinations.
You kind of just aim it up like the ball's not even there. You shoot straight through. For me, anyway. You shoot the 2 like the 7's not there. That was a little unfortunate there.
David unable to pocket the 7, the back end of that combination.
He did well to hold the 2 there and have position for that after.
Brian will attempt to successfully make the combination, which he does. Now shooting on the 2. Seen any problems from Brian here on out?
No, it looks a little tight with the 5 ball going past the 6, but I think it goes past. If that is indeed the case, there are no problems.
So we'll see. Brian's definitely going to take his time, knowing that the opportunity is now there to close this match out, punch his ticket to the finals. But he still has to execute here on the table.
That's a nice shot. They've come a little further than he wanted.
Brian will try to sneak that 5 into the corner there. Does he sneak that through, or does he combination that?
Well, if it doesn't go, then I think he's going to shoot the combo.
There we go.
There we go. That answered the question. I'm going to play this to go above the 8 and shoot it down the rail. Watch out for that side pocket.
Oh, so
Wow.
Brian returns the favor, so to speak. Scratches.
Absolutely.
Going to give David an opportunity back at the table. I'm guessing
Such a
he
tight,
will most likely run out here, and we're going to have a hill match. So
that's a crazy angle that cue ball just took. Wow. Such a
they kind of traded out the miscues, right? They each
They
had a
did, yeah.
a crucial scratch there.
yeah.
David now just the 9 ball away from moving to the hill.
And
No
as
problem
predicted,
pocketing the
nail-biter.
9 ball. So we're hill, folks. You're getting your money's worth if you're tuning into the U.S. Amateur Championship. 2 former champions, or a former champion and a defending champion. Hill in this race to 7. The next game will determine your winner and will determine who advances to the final. Doesn't get much better than this.
That's all you can ask for as a viewer, right? You wanna
And
see-
if I'm David Rowell,
Oh,
I mean, not much I can,
absolutely.
he had given up the
he
the
was
game, and he had given up the rack to Brian. Brian looked to be in good shape, and now David has new life suddenly. And nice show of sportsmanship there, a little fist pump between the two.
Yep.
Again, these guys very familiar with each other. I'm assuming they have played several times over the years. One of the really cool things about the U.S. Amateur Championship is you see the sportsmanship kind of displayed throughout the event.
Definitely, yeah.
Something I believe very unique in pool.
Don't think he can see the 1 ball after another nice break by David.
And you can kind of see he knows
Yeah.
he knows there's some issues. 7 balls on the table here. But the key is that 1 ball.
Yeah, if he can't see it, I think a push is probably his best option. You know, if he can't see it to make it, it looks like he can see the edge of the 1, but I don't think he can see enough to pocket the ball.
Again, both of these players still undefeated, so the winner will advance to the final. The loser will enter the 1-loss side of the bracket, have to fight their way back a little bit to reach the final, but both these players still very much alive. David Rowell here at the table in green from Birmingham, Alabama. David was our champion in 2000. Oh, wow.
Pressure got to him there.
And you see, kind of grabs his head, realizing.
Yeah, that was a very wide open table and a pretty easy shot there. That's what have you take your eye off the ball for a split second.
You can see the frustration from David in the background. Brian executes a bank shot, so David knows. You can see him there. He's visibly frustrated, but again, still very much alive here.
It's pretty funny. Brian's been dead to rights in a couple of his matches this year, and his opponent has kind of gifted him the win.
Brian now 3 balls away from advancing to the final. David hopeful for one last opportunity. Would take a fairly large mistake on Brian's part at this point.
I'm sure he's going to make sure he has enough chalk this time.
Plenty of chalk, don't scratch.
Yeah.
Plenty of chalk, don't scratch. Brian now on the 8 ball. Which he pockets in the side. Turns his attention to the 9 ball. It's been a nail biter, folks. Hope you've enjoyed it. As Brian Parks pockets the 9 in the corner, the players will shake hands after an exceptionally good match. Brian will move on to the final. David will, again, have to fight his way back through the 1-loss bracket, but we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back here in a little bit with some more live coverage of the U.S. Amateur Championship. Stuart Warnock, thanks to you, buddy.
Yeah,
appreciate you
for
stopping by.
No problem.
And for those of you at home, come back and check back in with us here in a little bit. Thanks for joining us.